Shavua Tov, pardon my hoarseness. I got a little bit of a cold this past week. But the people, the religious community in Mevaseret was struck by a bolt of lightning out of a blue sky this week when the mayor announced that Mevaseret will now be running buses in conjunction with the Tel Aviv municipality to Tel Aviv on Shabbat. And what is the crucial need that this will fulfill, as the mayor said, to enable young people to get to pubs and nightclubs on Shabbat? Wow, obviously this is not the need, that's a joke. The real agenda is obviously to make a strong statement of secularization, and in doing so, they are violating a 70-year status quo, which saw coexistence in Mevaseret. And now, all of a sudden, the mayor has basically said, we are going to make it clear that this is a secular town, making all of the religious people feel deeply hurt and deeply insulted. After all, here in Mevaseret, we do have a sizable religious community, and the town does not provide adequate services to us at all. Many of us have to send our children into Jerusalem for middle school and high school because there is no religious middle school or high school for the general community here in Mevaseret, and yet the local council refuses to pay for the transportation for that. That would be a worthwhile expenditure, I would think. But no, it's more important to co-pay for young people to go to Tel Aviv on Shabbat to celebrate in pubs and nightclubs. And the statement, the catchphrase that they use is "live and let live." This is a nice sounding catchphrase, but really what it is saying is, let me do what I want to do and I don't care if it offends you. That is the underlying intent. And unfortunately, this is the way that many of us feel very hurt by this decision. But what is behind the decision, and most importantly, what are the religious communities of Mevaseret supposed to do about it? What should be our response? Of course, it's in the Parsha. The Parsha tells us about the Asafsuf, the mixed multitude that joined with the Israelites as they left Egypt. And now all of a sudden they are complaining that they don't like the manna, they want meat, they want fish, they want all of the foods and delicacies they used to have in Egypt. And as a result of this complaint, the rest of the Israelites join in, and there will be consequences, there will be punishment. God is very displeased, Moshe is very upset. One could ask, why are they so upset? After all, it's not like they're asking for treifa food. They're not asking to violate anything necessarily, although the rabbis see that the complaint is really masking deeper complaints about the Torah itself. But on the surface, they're not asking for something that is explicitly forbidden. Why should there be such consequences? Second of all, the manna itself was able to contain any taste that they wanted. So thus say the rabbis, and the Torah describes how they would prepare it each in their own fashion. It seemed like a pretty decent and nutritious food to eat. Probably far better than all of the cholesterol and whatever else in the foods that they were longing for that they had back in Egypt. Thirdly, why were they upset with the manna now when really, according to the plan, they only had a few more weeks to go before they entered the land of Israel, and then they would be eating from the produce of the land of Israel. So the manna itself is only temporary, it's on its way out, until they sinned with the spies and got stuck in the wilderness for 40 years. But now, at this point, that hasn't happened, so the plan is that in a few short weeks they're going in to the land of Israel. So why now? The great psychologist and Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl describes what he saw in the camps, and he asks a fundamental question. How could anybody survive those conditions? Starvation, inadequate clothing in the Polish winter, of course, brutal work and brutal treatment. And yet people survived. Not everybody, but those that did had something unique about them, and Frankl noticed it and he documented it. What did they have that enabled them to survive? They had a strong why, a strong reason to survive. And Frankl's statement rings true throughout history that those who have a very strong, motivating why will find the how. And so it was. He tells a story about one particular individual in his barrack who had a dream or was convinced that on a certain day the liberation would come. And he had a cigarette, and he kept that cigarette, and he said, on the day when the liberation comes, on this date, specific date, I will smoke the cigarette. Well, the date came, and no liberation came. He smoked the cigarette anyway, and Frankel said this man has now given up, and he probably won't last long, and so it was. You see, when you have a mission, all of the things that make life pleasurable on the physical realm become less important, and even the great suffering that they had wasn't enough to stop them from surviving and seeing it through, because that why was so compelling. And Frankel says in times of normal existence, when you're not in the Holocaust, so then people who don't have a why are still going to be at a disadvantage because they are prone to addictions. Because there is a deep-seated need in the human being to have a sense of purpose. And that is a famine, that is a thirst. And as the Navi says, that God will send a famine and a thirst into the land, not for food or water or drink, but to listen to the word of the Lord. We are naturally compelled to seek meaning, to seek purpose. And if we don't accept that meaning and purpose, so then that hunger and that thirst are there, we will try to quench them and satisfy them with material pleasures, with physical pleasures, with addictions. That is the way that the human being functions. We need that sense of purpose. But these mixed multitudes that came and joined the Jewish people, they didn't share that sense of mission. Indeed, why did they come? Because they saw that as Egypt was about to let the Israelites go, the Israelites were very high up in their eyes. They were going to be leaving with great wealth and great prestige. And these people, this mixed multitude, said, said, this is a good group to join up with. Let's join them. So they came and they joined. And now they find themselves in the middle of the desert, without all the prestige and without all the riches, and all they have is this awful manna food, according to them, which was probably the most wonderful and miraculous food ever. But they couldn't see it because they didn't have a sense of mission. They denied it. And the Israelites will get into trouble, especially now as they are about to enter the land of Israel, because they are beginning to doubt that mission. And they realize that when they come into the land, they're going to have to fight. They're going to have to be involved in battle, and then they're going to have to be building and planting and struggling in order to fulfill this national mission. And well, that's something that's scary if you don't either believe in the mission in the first place, or if you do believe in it, but you don't believe that you are capable of fulfilling it. And so then where does one go for comfort? The refrigerator, or whatever else is going to provide that temporary relief when that famine and that thirst for mission is not fulfilled through the mission itself. And so therefore, that is the cause of what happened. Now, when this is taking place, Moses is upset, and God says to Moses, and Moses complains to God, and then God says to Moses two things. First, he says to him, gather 70 people. Moses is saying, it's too hard for me to lead the people. So God says, gather 70 people. I will put upon them the spirit of prophecy, and they will help you to bear the burden of the people. And as for the people, tell them to become sanctified tomorrow. Hitkadeshu l'machar, become sanctified tomorrow. That's an interesting phrase, to become sanctified tomorrow. What's going to happen tomorrow? God will bring you meat. There's going to be the pheasants, which are going to come. And the people will be able to eat all that meat. Why hitkadeshu? Why become sanctified? And why is it preceded by Moses having to gather 70 people to join him and to share in his prophecy? What is that all about? Well, this is the response that the religious community should consider in dealing with this particular hurtful decree of the mayor of Mevaseret about the buses on Shabbat. The first thing, well, let's go to the second thing, and then we'll go back to the first thing. The become sanctified for tomorrow. This immediately makes me think of the parasha of Kedoshim, where we are given a very strange mitzvah. It sounds nice, but it doesn't. What does it mean? It's the mitzvah of being holy. Kedoshim tiyu, Kedoshim, become holy. How does one exactly do that? Tefillin, I know what to do. Matzah on Pesach, I know what to do. But what does it mean to be holy? So the Ramban explains that it means that one is not to become a glutton with the permission of the Torah. In other words, a person shouldn't say, I'm going to eat all day long, but I'll make sure that it's glatt kosher. That's not the purpose of life. The purpose of life is not to feed oneself. The purpose of life is to have a mission. And holiness involves that mission. We are to be, as God said at Mount Sinai, a kingdom of priests, a mamlechet kohanim v'goy kadosh, and a holy nation. A holy nation has a holy purpose and mission. Says the Ramban, you're going to confuse the laws of the Torah with the fundamental of the Torah. The laws of the Torah, which require kashrut, you're going to keep that perfectly, but you're going to miss the whole fundamental point, which is that the nation of Israel is to march forward and to change the world and to bring faith and morality to all of humankind. And this person, instead, is spending their day eating their glot kosher food. So that is, I think, the lesson that the Israelites need to learn. Hitkadeshu l'machar, become holy tomorrow. And you know what? Even if you do get the meat will not become your reason for living. It will not become your addiction. It will instead become something that enables you to move forward in life. But in order to achieve that change in the attitude of the people, who at this point are clamoring for meat just to quench that spiritual hunger in the only way that they think is going to work, Moses needs to teach them this, and he can't do it alone. So God says to him, and this is already the explanation given by the great Rabbi Samson Raphael Hirsch, that the first thing Moses is told to do is get these 70 people so that they should go out among the people and teach them about holiness, teach them Kedoshim Tiyu, teach them the Ramban about being holy and having a sense of mission. And do this in advance of tomorrow, so that when the pheasants come, when the meats come, and when all of the pleasures of this world come, and the tomorrow could also mean when they get into the land and finally succeed in conquering the land, not to become fat, not to become gluttons with the permission of Torah, but to maintain that sense of mission. Get out there and teach them. That is what we need. The public sphere, the public square in Mevaseret and in any other place belongs to the whole public, not just to those who wish to see businesses open and buses running. It also belongs to the religious community. And the religious community, instead of creating demonstrations and and screaming and yelling and doing all of that stuff, rather we should be demonstrating in favor of unity and bringing more Torah, more Judaism, more Jewish values to the people of Israel. And that means having classes. That means having Jewish music. It means doing lots of acts of kindness and chesed. The day before Shabbat, yesterday, the chief rabbi of Mevaseret went to give out candles, Shabbos candles, to people in the malls, he himself. And that is, I think, the direction of the response that we need to take. I will just conclude with the story about one of my Rabbeim, the great Rabbi David Lifshitz, whom I had the merit to sit in his classroom. I won't say I learned a ton, but I wasn't the sharpest student there for sure, so I sat in the classroom for 2 years with Rav David Lifshitz. Rav David Lifshitz was the Rav of a city called Suwalk in Poland when he was 26 years old. He escaped through Russia, then to Shanghai, made his way to Chicago. And in Chicago, this story I heard from Rabbi Moshe Horowitz, who was the Rosh Hashiva of BMT in Jerusalem, Beit Midrash Torah, who was there. One fine Shabbat, Rabbi Lifshitz announced to his students, "Let's go to Roosevelt Avenue." And the students were shocked. Shabbat to Roosevelt Avenue? This is a business district. All the stores there are open. It's traffic, and this is where we're going on Shabbat. But the rabbi said, so they went. And Rabbi Lifshitz went onto Roosevelt Avenue, and he looked at each store and looked for the name of the owner. And if it was a name like Goldberg, Cohen, Berkowitz, Levy, whatever, a Jewish-sounding name, he would go into the store, go up to the storekeeper and say, it's Shabbos today. Maybe you want to close the store a little bit early and go home and spend some time with your family and have a little bit of the Shabbos in your life. Now, I don't know how many people actually listened to him. I can tell you that Rabbi Lifshitz was somebody who it was impossible not to love, and so I suspect that he probably did have some success on that particular occasion. But that is the approach that we need to take. Not to burn tires, not to throw stones, but rather to bring more Yiddishkeit into the public square because it is our public square as much as anybody else's. And as far as changing the situation with the buses, that'll be the job of the politicians. We have elections in a few months. Hopefully a change will come and there'll be more of a sympathetic government in Mevaseret to help the needs of the religious community as well. But in the meantime, it is our job to do our best to be among those 70 people going out and teaching the everybody who's open to learning about Kedoshim to you what it means to be a holy nation. Shabbat Shalom, Shavua Tov.